All right. So today is going to be one of the first podcasts that I have done that is live. It's videoed. And so I thought before I start that process of interviewing some of my friends that are founders and have built businesses, I thought it would be important to be able to interview my best friend, Gene Howard. So welcome.
Thank you. And I'm free.
So, but I will tell you this. He has not seen the questions that I'm asking him. He has no clue. No clue, I promise. So I'm going to be asking these. And part of the reason why I wrote them and I wanted to ask them because I want them to be natural. I didn't want them to be prepared. And I know one thing that you don't really like that I do, but I'll say, give me a word. And because I like just hearing the wisdom that Gene gives me. And so I thought this would be fun to be able to kind of go through it and would help those of you that listen to the podcast, because you know the name of my podcast is Big Girl Panties and Other Business Essentials. These are people that are building businesses. Mm-hmm. So are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. So question number 1, calling versus career. When you look back over your life, where do you see God's hand most clearly shaping your work and your leadership?
Having your own business. You learn leadership, you learn patience, and you need to learn it quick because your business depends on it. And so I have seen that that's really where that has been a part of shaping me. And then spiritual walk. That's a part of that as well, because I don't see, for me, doing one without the other, because without the spiritual component, it's all me. But with the spiritual component, there is that supernatural part of where I don't have that ability, but God does.
It's kind of what we were talking about this morning as far as wanting the eternal significance of things and working with the guys and the logistics, and that feeds our soul, but we also see the responsibility of the leadership component. Number 2, having your faith in everyday decisions. How do you, Gene Howard, invite God into the daily practical decisions of business, not just the big moments?
We've talked before about, there's a book about, I think the name of it was Decisions or Make a Decision, something like that. Been years ago, and it was about really, mulling over and making a decision, and how many opportunities we've missed because we didn't make a decision because we were afraid of what the consequences would be. The desire was the outcome to be positive, we worried about the negative.
Making no decision
is a decision. But as far as faith, I've learned faith is a long game, and it's not always immediate gratification, because God's time is not our time. And I've realized that things have happened in my life over the years that I didn't understand the immediacy of why the negative outcome, only to find out many months later, that there was a positive outcome that was derived from those negative.
A lot of people may not know this that are going to be watching and listening, or listening later, but on Mondays and Fridays, when you have your Zoom with the team, whether they're in the office or they're in logistics or management, and how you pray over them on Mondays and Fridays. How have you seen that's made a difference in how you've worked with your employees, and how have they responded to that?
Well, it's kind of like a marriage, that when you're praying for one another, it's hard to get upset or mad or stay upset when you're praying over somebody, because when you're doing that, you want the best for them, and it will also help develop patience, I believe, in how you handle the situation.
That's a good word.
How you.
It's more personal. You feel like you've connected with them on a
yeah.
different level.
Oh yeah.
That's a good word.
You know, the what is it? They don't care how much you know until they know how much you care.
That's a good word. People over profit. We've always believed that business is ministry.
Mm-hmm.
So what does it actually look like to lead people with both excellence and compassion?
It's hard. It's hard because when you're trying to push for excellence with someone that doesn't see excellence as part of their giftings, the compassion gets thin. And so it does have there's a balance, and you have to find that balance.
You know, one thing that we were talking about when I shared that video with you this past week, as far as when we truly get to the point of understanding the grace that God has given us, it's mind-boggling and humbling, and gives, for me personally, it gives me the desire to want to honor God and serve Him because of so much grace. But how much more in a leadership position when people know that we are believers, they kind of expect the grace. They need to see it in action, don't you think?
Well, and then sometimes they don't understand that grace because
They've never been given it
that's
before.
not been given before.
So what an opportunity to be able to bring somebody to the Lord. And if they work for you for just a small amount of time, that they can say, that was one of the sweetest environments I've ever worked in. You know, a lot of these people may not know, because I know a lot of times in the mornings, especially when we lived on Wood Trail, you would get your coffee and you would walk around the house and pray.
Or outside.
Outside.
Or around the house.
What would prompt that? Sometimes, I mean, what would be one morning, why would you feel prompted to get your coffee and walk around the perimeter of the house?
In our heart, there is that Garden of Eden that is still within us, where you see the beauty in the nature, and Wood Trail had that. Walking, I felt like I was in the Garden of Eden, and I was just praying and thanking God over everything that I could think of.
And a hedge of protection. I love that. With an antique, just thinking about antiques and the antique lens, you love old things.
And I'm getting there.
We both are. Old furniture, old buildings, old craftsmanship. What have antiques taught you about patience, about value, and about restoration that applies to life and business?
Well, you know, we talk about our love for antiques and how we can appreciate the design, the time that it took for that master carpenter to woodworker to make that piece of furniture. Whereas with today's standards and equipment, that things are done in a production and they're produced in hours instead of weeks, and that the people that have owned that, and more than one, several people down generational and through just somebody discarding and somebody else picking, that has created somewhat of a soul to that piece, because there's been so much that piece has seen over 100 years, 200 years, 300 years. And you can almost feel that. And I don't mean that from a woo way. I just mean you feel that, and there's a story to it.
And it makes your house feel more collected and personal. For me, from a decorative standpoint.
Well, you can see the difference between an antique from the 1700s and then a piece of furniture that you see at IKEA or some other.
Oh, 100%. So, in business, as far as hiring people and hard conversations, what have been some of the hardest lessons that you've learned about hiring, about trust, and working with people, and how has your faith shaped the way you handle conflict?
Well, one thing is to hire slow, because just because that person has a pulse and breathing and
it's hard these days
and standing,
when people need people.
Yeah,
it's really hard.
It is. But I like what you have done, that your practice, that you have them take a DISC assessment and to learn where their strengths are and where their weaknesses are. And is it such that those strengths benefit, and are the weaknesses such that can they be strengthened before you hire that person? But conflict is never easy, because when you have to provide constructive criticism, it has to be done in such a way that it doesn't feel like an attack on them personally.
There again, that goes back to the relationship.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
When they know that you're pouring into them.
Mm-hmm.
So perseverance when it's hard. There are going to be people that are going to be listening to this that they're very discouraged. We've walked through those times of being very discouraged. Mm-hmm. What would you say to a business owner who's tired, who's discouraged, and they're wondering if they should just quit?
That's hard, because that's a personal journey for them. And one, you look at the secular side, you go through the numbers, you go through the P&L, you go through all of the business 101 and say, is this squeeze, is the juice worth the squeeze on this to continue, versus is this where I know God wants me? And if so, it's all about pray and patience, pray and patience, pray and patience, because if that's where you're supposed to be, you continue.
For me personally, when I think about that, it's more, is it a God idea or is it a good idea? Mm-hmm. And if it's the God idea and it's something that he wants us to do, as I asked you this morning, I was like, is it okay that if I take and I step into this faith of obedience, is it okay that I ask God to bless me?
It's biblical. So
if someone knows beyond a shadow of a doubt that God put them in that position, and sometimes, is there anywhere in Scripture that you can think about how right before, like, people were ready to give up, right before God just kind of revealed something to them or blessed them, or that it was like, or they almost gave up?
Well, you think of the Israelites. They were ready to give up, and they had been given every sign from God that this was his plan and what he wanted them to do, and they just were faithless and disobedient, and it was the next generation after them that got to see Canaan.
This is not one of my questions, but how do you feel about a business owner having their management team, if they have, the team that's closest to them as far as getting together and praying? From a legal perspective, and it has to always be from like an invitation, like, we're going to do this, but this is not.
It's not mandatory.
Right.
It's you make it optional.
Right.
And those who want to can, and those who don't, it's optional.
Mm-hmm. This is definitely directed towards you because you have such a sense of humor. God clearly gave you a sense of humor. And how important is laughter in leadership, marriage, and business?
Laughter is the best medicine. I don't know who said that, but that's been the heading for many, 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 many years. But it's also healthy. A lot of times you talk about, well, you just can't do anything but laugh, because nothing else is going to resolve it at that point. And laughing allows you to take some of the pressure off. It maybe de-escalates,
that's a good word.
Temper or anger or something of that emotion. And
your dad was so godly, and I loved him so much. And I know he's having a good time with my dad in heaven. Is there an instance that you remember when you were younger that he used humor to de-escalate something? Or with an employee, or was he more stoic in that sense?
He was more stoic, but his humor was, he had the patience, of Job, and but his humor, and he had such a godly spirit, but he had such a joyful spirit. It just, but I don't know of a de-escalating of where he used humor necessarily, but that was just part of his personality.
Do you realize how much like your dad you are?
Well, he did raise me.
But do you realize that?
He was my model.
Do you sense that just in your spirit?
A little bit. Yeah.
I hear his voice, and I hear your voice.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people may not realize this at home, some of them that have maybe heard my story, but knowing that your dad and how I met him and how I asked him to be my prayer partner, and not having met you yet, and then going on that canoe trip for the first time and hearing you in the back of that canoe, it was your father talking.
Mm-hmm.
It was really weird for me. But
what many people don't know is Amy lived across the street from my parents for years.
He did.
And I had never,
they did,
and went to the same church, and we never met until, gosh, 36 years ago.
As far as legacy and stewardship, when it's all said and done, what do you hope people, gosh, I don't know why this is, I do. And I'll take a moment to say this. We found out today, he was a friend, somebody that we worked with, somebody that really believed in us, passed away. And so it makes asking questions like this a lot more poignant. So when it's all said and done,
mm-hmm.
What do you hope people say about the way you lived, the way you led, and the way you loved others?
It was genuine. It was the real deal. And I hope people would say that they didn't have any really bad thing to say about me, unless the way I lived was contrary to the way they live. That's.
You have a tender heart. So, anything to close this out that you want to be able to say to people that might be listening?
I appreciate and love you, and how much I've seen you grow over the years, and it's made me a better person, and it's made me really look inward a lot and want to be a better person. And I don't mean that better from a secular standpoint. Yes, secular too, but from a spiritual standpoint.
Well, thank you for me and my ride or die buddy. And I'm excited about going on our little antiquing trip.
Yes.
That'll bring back memories.
Yeah. Follow us to Mount Dora, Florida.
Thank you.
No, you don't do this with everybody, do you?
No. So,
it's your interview.
Thank y'all for being a part of this podcast, and thank you, Jean, for being a part of my first video. It's a lot easier for me to talk just into my phone and record these, but having to do these videos, I didn't know if I could really do it. But hopefully it allows you to be able to connect with us in a deeper way, and prayerfully that we can mentor you through this process of questions and wondering how do you handle certain situations, and employees, or even God ideas that you feel like you have that you want to be able to come to fruition. So have a wonderful day. Stay tuned, because we'll be doing more of these interviews. We love you guys.
Bye.
Bye.